good player. So I think
you say one of the best or the best midfield in the Prem. What did you say? One of the best.
One of the for me, Chelsea like top 3 midfield in the Prem.
Top 3.
Top 3, yeah.
Nowhere near.
Yo,
Will. I don't know what you're smoking.
I think Arsenal,
I don't
City,
know what you're smoking, brother.
Liverpool.
I think,
how do Arsenal? Hold on, wait. So
are you basing? Hang on, guys. Let me just jump in here. Break that down. Whose midfields are above them, and why do you think it's the third best in the league?
Well, because I just like the balance. So for me, I think Caicedo is a really good player. I think Enzo Fernandez is a really good player. I think Nkunku is a really good player, right? You have Lavia as well, who can come in and replace either Caicedo or an Enzo, right? You sign Dewsbury Hall. Have a good team. You could also even maybe sometimes play Cole Palmer in like that 10 role, depending on how you want to go with your different formations. Like for me, Arsenal don't have a better midfield than Chelsea because you're still looking to buy somebody to play next to Declan Rice. Hang on. Like you're relying on. You're relying on Thomas Partey.
Hold on. What are you basing this on? I'm asking because you've mentioned all these players who have talent, but you can't tell me 10 games that they've played together in that midfield that you can point to at the Chelsea midfield. So if you're just basing it on paper, on talent alone, I understand where you're coming from. If you're saying, oh, well, on paper, man for man, well, Nkunku is better than this person or whatever, it's all subjective. I hear that. We're asking the best why are you saying, not on paper, actively, like looking at the midfield, looking at
because
City's
we got to talk about it from
a
talent.
No. You can't just talk about it from talent purely. You have to talk about it as the midfield. So are you saying if we go up against Chelsea's midfield right now, right? Forget Marino. Marino is not in. I'm not going to count a player that hasn't come in right now. If we play Thomas Partey, who's fit right now, we play Declan Rice, and we play Martin Odegaard, you're saying that the Chelsea midfield will overrun the Arsenal midfield, who has played together for a whole season, understand themselves, or even 2 seasons back to back. Of course, Partey didn't play last season, but this Chelsea midfield that has not played enough under Maresca is a better midfield. Like that data doesn't work for me. Like that's all I'm saying. If you want to say on paper, I get you, but anything outside that.
So here's what I would say, right? I'd rather have Enzo and Caicedo over Rice and Thomas Partey. The only player that I would really look at is Martin Odegaard for me. Yeah, I'm just being real. I know that everybody wants to make it seem like all doom and gloom for Chelsea, but
guys. When Will, can I ask something? When Will's explaining himself, can we not interrupt and just let him keep talking, please? Otherwise, we don't actually hear the rationale. We just hear that I disagree. You've got to hear the rationale, and then I'll go to you guys to try and rebuttal. Sorry, continue, please, Will.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, just from an overall team POV, right? And I get what Dio is saying in terms of, so we haven't necessarily seen it yet because of injuries and other things, but I kind of have to go based off the potential, right? Like that's why these players are bought. Now, obviously, right, Arsenal's midfield, they've done it, right? You guys are in a title race. That's fantastic. But I'm saying I would rather have Chelsea's midfield right now than have Arsenal's. That's why Arsenal, right? You guys bought Declan Rice. He's supposed to be a DM that can't play as one. You need somebody next to him because he can't receive the ball from the back line without losing it if he's being pressed. So now, even if you do bring in Marino from Real Sociedad, that's the wrong midfielder from that team to go look at because I don't think he's all that either. So to me, aside from Man City's, who's also is a little shaky, right? Because there's nobody really next to Rodri unless you really rate Kovacic or Matthias Nunes. For me, I think Chelsea's midfield is just complete. Like I think it's well balanced.
What makes it well balanced? This is why I'm asking you. See, here's the point. You can only say well balanced when you have seen them play together and they look balanced. You assuming on paper that Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo complement each other because they're talented players and Dewsbury Hall is talented. So
it's the same way that Arsenal.
Hold on. You assuming that because they look good talent on paper that they look more balanced. Yes, on paper they might look balanced. On the field of play, they may not be balanced. And that's all I'm saying to you. On the Arsenal side of things, it's been proven that they balanced midfield. When they've played, nobody would have thought that they would have been that balanced. The point is you can look at the players and say, well, this guy is more talented, but what profile and what role do they play in that midfield? Rodri, we know what he can do. Kovacic, we know how he complements Rodri. We know what that midfield can do. We know what De Bruyne can do when he's in that midfield and how they complement themselves. We haven't seen it with the Chelsea one. I'm not saying they're not talented players. Nkunku is talented. Caicedo is talented. Enzo is talented, but we haven't seen it yet. So to say, you know, but it's your preference to say, hey, you prefer that. That's understandable. I'm just saying, if you ask me about Man City and Arsenal's midfield, look, give me KDB and Rodri any day. Just give me those two and throw in Odegaard.
Well, yeah, but that's why I said that
fine.
They're top 3. Like they're,
I know,
yeah,
but you see, but even with what I just said right now, I can't say they are better than the Man City midfield right now because I haven't seen Odegaard play with Rodri. I'm just looking based on talent alone. I can't say that. That's all I'm saying.
Craig here says Nobbins and Terry blatantly agree with Will. I'm going to go to Nobbins on this. Do you agree with Will? Do you think Chelsea's midfield is essentially better than Arsenal's?
I just need to ask a qualifier first, if that's okay to Will. Do you mean off ball or on ball first of all? Because that's a big difference. What are you talking about first of all?
I think just in general, and I'm more so just talking about the pivot because I do think that like Odegaard is possibly better than Nkunku, but I'm just talking just in general.
Pivot.
So
Sorry,
I believe
that joke.
And so that sounds more like off ball. So then follow up question in this pivot, which two are you choosing?
I would choose Enzo and Caicedo over Declan Rice and Thomas Partey or Declan Rice and Jorginho. Because I think on the ball, they're also better. Enzo Fernandez is better on the ball than any of Arsenal's midfielders who are back there aside from like Odegaard. But Odegaard's more of a 10. So I'm talking about like that, the two partners next to each other.
Yeah, I can't agree with that. I think that Enzo and Caicedo, I don't know if they even work together that well off ball. I don't think they necessarily cover each other's weaknesses very well. So it's seriously compared to City's, absolutely not. Compared to what I believe Arsenal's is, I don't think so.
Not even better than United's.
I think
Stop it.
They're not.
I think that if I know it's a hypothetical, but if Liverpool did sign Zubimendi, I think that would take Liverpool's midfield ahead of them as well. I get you're coming from a position of theory and a concept. But in terms of what we've seen, which is all I can really go off, I can't really go off what may or may not happen.
Yeah,
I don't think that's a justifiable thing to say personally. I don't. They might get in like the top 5, but top 3, I think, is a bit of a madness.
But it's potential not what we go off of, right? Like, is that not what made like Arsenal fans about sounding like Calafiori, right? Now like the back line's so solidified and all these things.
By that same token, Will, I could say that. Well, I've never seen Ipswich's midfield, so therefore, hypothetically, I could say that they've got the best potential ever.
But let's be.
I don't think that's a fair thing to judge it off.
I mean, okay, but that's a very extreme example because Ipswich don't have a top 3 midfield. That's very extreme.
Will, I would say this though. You base some conversations off of potential in terms of Endrick that you've just signed at Real Madrid. There's an excitement because of potentially how good he could become.
Yeah,
you could argue that potentially because of his potential and his ability that on paper you could say but you wouldn't say one of the best strikers in the world, just because there's a potential for him to get there. I agree that there's some real technically gifted football players at Chelsea, but what we have seen is that Arsenal midfield you've mentioned dominate regularly in the Premier League over the past 12 months to put themselves in contention to win the league, one of the greatest English teams of all time, where Chelsea's midfield that you've mentioned have played together and have been inconsistent would be the politest way to put it. So I think you can have a conversation about technically who you think's better, but when it comes to practicality, I think you have to base it on what we know and what we've seen rather than the potential. Now, what I would say is that this year, under a new system with a new manager, you could see that potential be realized. And I think if Caicedo and Enzo were to be knitted together well this year and played to their full potential, then there's an argument for it. But until you see it, you can't say it exists, surely.
Yeah, no, okay, so that's true, Terry. But then let me ask you a question then. We've watched Enzo Fernandez play, right, with Argentina. We've seen him have some good performance for Chelsea as well, right? I'm just coming off of Copa America where I saw Caicedo cook with Ecuador. So, like, we know what these players can provide. Like, we're not talking about youngsters who are just making their way from the under-17s with a lot of potential. No, we're talking about players who they bought in for big money that we see the talent that they have. We see the skill sets that they have. I think the reason why you see Arsenal look a little bit better in midfield is because they're more of a stable team and they're in a different direction right now, where Chelsea are just trying to rebuild. Arsenal are trying to compete. So I think it's a little bit different, if that doesn't make sense. But just looking at the quality that both
you just
players
answered
have,
it.
No. What I'm saying is looking at the okay, here's what I'm saying. Let's say, for example, if you replace Rice and Thomas Partey with Enzo and Caicedo, I think Arsenal are still in the position that they are right now. They're still competing, and they might
No.
look a little bit better because Enzo is better than Declan Rice.
I don't.
Let me just say this,
I
Will.
think-
Will, sorry,
Can
Sad,
I
one
just
second.
say- can I
Sad,
just say
Sad,
one-
one second.
Okay, go ahead. Go
My brother. Sorry. So, Will, I understand where you're coming from, but what you're saying is if, buts, and maybes. Yes, we've seen Enzo, a talented player in the World Cup. We've seen him at the Copa America. We've seen Caicedo do the same thing. We've seen individual talent. Sometimes you might have the best ingredients. It's like cooking. If you put a little bit of too much of this, the food tastes crap. Enzo and Caicedo together might not. I'm not saying that they won't work. Under the right system, they might work. We haven't seen it yet. You're basing it solely on their individual talent and assuming that as soon as you put it on the, and then you made a statement where you answered your own question. You said a more stable team. Because they are in an unstable team, I cannot say that midfield is better than a more stable team because there's a more, you just said to yourself, they're building. You said Arsenal is that's why Arsenal looks better. You said to yourself, The reason Arsenal midfield looks better, you can go back a few minutes ago. That was your statement. That the reason Arsenal's midfield, and I'm not comparing Arsenal and Chelsea's midfield. I'm just saying when we're talking about what midfield is a better midfield right now, you can't go based off, I'm just going to pick talented players because I know they're talented in Chelsea. And I agree they're talented, but I haven't seen them do it. But I'll say they're the better midfield as compared to what you're comparing what they've not done to what Arsenal has done and what City has done. City's midfield has done something. Arsenal's midfield has done something. But you're comparing the Chelsea midfield that hasn't had the chance yet to show what they're capable of doing to these guys. And that's where I don't get it. That's where I don't understand it.
I think if you have Enzo and Caicedo behind like Odegaard in this Arsenal team, I think that you guys would have won some silverware by now.
Do you think that's defensively solid enough, though?
I mean, maybe not so much so defensively, but I just think like on the ball, right? I think Arsenal would be a lot better.
But isn't that half the game?
But
Arsenal dominate possession more times than not. Like unless they're going against like a Man City, more times than not.
They do, but
So
they're also known as being one of the best. The reason why they were so good last season was because of their defensive solidity and an off-ball.
But I think it's more so because of their back line. Because you had Saliba, who was basically fit the entire season, right? You also had.
It wasn't, but the back line got protected, and it wasn't just the back line. Again, Arsenal off the ball was a very compact Arsenal team last season. Unlike the season before, where we played free-flowing football, we're scoring against everybody, but we weren't compact in defense. Even when we had Saliba before his injury 2 seasons ago, on counterattacks, we were very vulnerable. We were.
No, I mean, it's fair.
But last season, it was because our back line was very well protected. I mean, to the point where even when we had Zinchenko, maybe every now and then his stupid mistakes cost us goals. But yeah, he was also protected by Gabriel a lot and protected by Declan Rice, who would drop back and really help him in defense. You'd see Bukayo Saka dropping all the way back to help. So my point is like when you say defensively, it just wasn't the back line. That's a myth that people put out there to just be like, the back four with the solidity. It's actually because the team defends as a team. You see Martinelli helping at the back. You see Leandro Trossard, like literally at the back, helping. So,
I hear you guys on that. Look, I want to leave it to the viewers to have their say, give their opinions on this. I think we can go around the houses on this debate 100 times over. Some super chats to go to. First of all, Don says they wanted Caicedo. Don's been agreeing, so I need to ask Don a question in the comments. Do you agree with what Will has said? Do you think Arsenal would be a better team if they swap Partey and Rice for Caicedo and Enzo now today? I want a yes or no answer on that one from you, please, bro.